This morning, my son called to tell me my wife had died in a car accident. I was devastated until the bank called me. Sir, your wife just emptied the joint account. $320,000. When I asked to see the security footage, I couldn't believe who was there. What happened next would tear my family apart forever and change everything I thought I knew about the people I loved most. Please subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching this story from. What you're about to hear will shock you to your core. The call came from my son at 7:23 on a Tuesday morning. Dad, I'm at the hospital. There's been an accident. His voice was shaking and I could hear the controlled chaos of an emergency room behind him. It's Mom. You need to get here now. I'd been sitting in my kitchen, coffee growing cold as I read the morning paper. The Oregon autumn light filtered through Sandra's yellow curtains, the ones she'd bought last spring because they made the room feel like sunshine lives here. In 3 seconds that peaceful morning shattered. What happened? I managed, already pushing back from the table. Car accident on Highway 22, Ashton said. She was driving to her book club meeting. Dad, it's bad. You need to get here right now. I don't remember the drive to Salem General Hospital, though I must have broken every speed limit. What I do remember is the prayer I kept repeating, please God, not Sandra, not yet. I found Ashton in the emergency room waiting area, his usually perfect appearance disheveled. When he saw me, his face crumpled like a little boy's. Dad, he said, embracing me. I got here as fast as I could. The police called me first because Mom had my number as her emergency contact. Before I could process that, a man in scrubs approached us. Tall, maybe 50, with kind eyes that held the weight of delivering bad news. His name tag read, Dr. Nathaniel Ashford, Emergency Medicine. Mr. Kane, he said softly, I'm Dr. Ashford. I've been treating your wife. The past tense hit me like a physical blow. I'm so very sorry, Dr. Ashford continued. We did everything we could. Your wife suffered massive internal injuries in the collision. She passed away at 6:45 this morning. She wouldn't have felt any pain. The world tilted sideways. I felt Ashton's arms around me, heard him crying, felt my own knees buckle. 42 years of marriage, and it ended in a hospital hallway with a doctor I'd never met. Dad, I'm so sorry, Ashton whispered. I know how much you loved her. Dr. Ashford explained about arrangements and paperwork. His words washed over me like water. All I could think about was Sandra's laugh, how she hummed while doing dishes, how she always stole the sports section before I could read it. Let me drive you home, Dad, Ashton said. I'll take care of everything. The funeral home, the arrangements, all of it. You just need to rest. The drive home passed in a blur. Back in our house, my house now, everything looked the same but felt completely different. Sandra's coffee cup still sat in the sink. Her bookmark peeked out from her novel. Her reading glasses lay folded next to her chair. I'll stay with you tonight. Dad, Ashton said, moving toward the kitchen, let me make you some tea. I sank into my recliner and stared at Sandra's empty chair, the floral cushions still bearing the impression where she'd sat every evening. The silence felt enormous, pressing against my chest. From the kitchen came the sounds of Ashton making tea. Then I heard his voice low and urgent, speaking on the phone. I couldn't make out the words, but something in his tone made me listen more carefully. There was an edge to it, a tension that seemed at odds with grief. I sat there in the growing afternoon shadows, surrounded by 42 years of shared memories, and felt something unexpected alongside the crushing weight of loss, something that made the hair on my neck stand up, though I couldn't quite name what it was. I woke up the next morning to find Ashton already dressed, car keys in hand. Dad, I need to handle some of Mom's affairs at the bank, he said. The way he avoided my eyes made my chest tighten. 2 hours later, my phone rang. I'd barely slept, spending most of the night replaying Dr. Ashford's words. When I dragged myself to the kitchen around 8, Ashton was already there in his best navy suit, the one Sandra had helped him pick out. You're up early, I said, pouring coffee with shaking hands. Couldn't sleep either, he replied, moving around with purpose. Dad, there are things that need handling. Mom's accounts documents with her name. I can take care of all that for you. I nodded, grateful. Dealing with bureaucracy while grieving felt impossible. Salem First National opens at 9. I'll transfer everything into your name. You just rest, okay? Maybe call Ophelia about funeral arrangements. After he left, the house felt emptier than ever. I wandered room to room, touching Sandra's things. Her coffee mug still sat unwashed in the sink. I couldn't bring myself to clean it. The phone rang at 10:15. Salem First National Bank showed on the caller ID. Mr. Kane. This is Cordelia Frost from Salem First National. I'm calling about unusual activity on your joint checking account. I know this is difficult, but we need to discuss this immediately. My stomach dropped. What kind of activity? A large withdrawal this morning. $320,000. The entire balance of your joint account. The room spun. That's impossible. My son is handling paperwork, but he couldn't withdraw that much. Sir, the withdrawal was made with a power of attorney document. The signature matches our records for your wife's signature. Power of attorney. I sank into Sandra's chair. Sandra never mentioned that. We've never needed one. Mr. Kane, if you have no knowledge of this document, we may be looking at a serious situation. $320,000. Our entire savings from 4 decades of careful living. Money for retirement emergencies, the grandchildren's college funds. Gone. I need to see this document, I said, steadier than I felt. And the security footage. How soon can you get here? I tried calling Ashton immediately. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same cheerful recording. Hey, you've reached Ashton. Leave a message. Standing before my bedroom mirror, I straightened my tie with trembling fingers. The man looking back seemed like a stranger. Hollowed out, aged overnight. 2 days ago, I'd been happily married, planning quiet retirement. Now I was a widower, suspecting his son had stolen everything we'd worked for. The drive to the bank felt endless. With every mile, questions multiplied. How long had Ashton planned this? Had Sandra known? Was this why she'd listed his number as emergency contact instead of mine? As I pulled into the bank parking lot, one thought echoed. If my son could steal from me the day after his mother's death, what else was he capable of? I sat in my car for a moment, staring at the brick building that housed 40 years of our financial life. Inside those walls was either proof of my son's innocence or evidence of a betrayal, so deep it would shatter what remained of my family. Taking a deep breath, I opened the car door and stepped into what felt like the first day of a completely different life. Cordelia Frost met me at the bank entrance with the expression of someone about to deliver bad news. Mr. Kane, I think you should sit down before we review the footage. I remained standing. I'd been sitting down for my whole life when bad news came. Not anymore. She was younger than I'd expected. Mid-40s, with graying hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. In 23 years of banking, I've never had to make a call like this morning's, she said, leading me toward the security office. The small room contained a desk and monitors, showing various bank angles. Cordelia gestured to one screen. The transaction occurred at 9:15 this morning. The footage is quite clear. 9:15. Exactly when Ashton said he was handling Mom's affairs. Show me, I said. She clicked the mouse. The screen filled with black and white footage of the teller counter. A tall figure in a dark suit approached window 3. A suit that looked familiar. The man turned slightly. There was no mistaking that profile. Ashton, my son, standing calmly at the window with a manila folder, looking as composed as if depositing a birthday check. That's him, I whispered. We watched Ashton hand documents to the teller, who processed them without hesitation. He signed papers, then signed again. The teller counted out cashier's checks, placing them in an envelope. The power of attorney document. Cordelia said the signature is perfect. Absolutely perfect. Either your wife signed it, or my son learned to forge her signature. I finished. Ashton tucked the envelope in his jacket and walked away. Just before leaving the frame, he glanced up at the security camera. For a split second, he looked directly into the lens, and I saw something that made my blood run cold. Not guilt or fear, satisfaction. I need copies of everything I said. The footage documents, transaction records. Mr. Kane, this is clearly fraud. We should contact police immediately. Not yet. I need to understand why first. My son just lost his mother. But even saying it, I didn't believe it. The man on that video hadn't acted like someone grieving. He'd acted like someone executing a plan. Cordelia printed everything sliding documents into an envelope. Is there any chance your wife actually signed that power of attorney without telling you? I thought about Sandra, about 42 years of shared decisions. No, Sandra would never do something like this without discussing it with me first. Walking to my car, the envelope felt heavier than it should. Inside was proof my son had stolen everything Sandra and I worked for. More than theft. A betrayal that cut so deep I could barely breathe. I sat in the parking lot staring at the bank's facade. 42 years of deposits and careful saving. Gone in 15 minutes. Driving home questions multiplied with every mile. If Ashton could forge Sandra's signature so perfectly, how long had he been planning this? If he could lie so convincingly about handling affairs, what else had he lied about? The most terrifying question crept in as I turned onto our street. If my son was capable of this level of deception and betrayal, was it really impossible to believe he might be capable of something even worse? Like making sure his mother never made it home from book club. Halfway home from the bank, I pulled over and called Ophelia. My daughter answered on the first ring, and I could hear road noise behind her voice. "Hi, Dad. I'm about 2 hours out from Salem. How are you holding up?" I stared at the bank footage on my phone screen. "Ophelia, change of plans. Meet me at Murphy's Coffee House on State Street first." "What's wrong? I was coming straight to the house to help with funeral arrangements." The urgency in my voice must have cut through her concern. "Something's happened. Something about Ashton and Ophelia. Don't call him. Don't tell him we're meeting." "Dad, you're scaring me." "I'm scared too, sweetheart. Just please come." 2 hours later, I sat in a corner booth at Murphy's nursing my third coffee. When Ophelia walked in, still wearing her Portland law firm blazer, her instincts were already activated. She scanned the room before spotting me, and her face changed when she saw my expression. "Dad," she said, sliding across from me, "you look like you've seen a ghost." "Honey, I need to show you something. Keep an open mind." I pulled out my phone, opening the video file. "This morning, Ashton went to the bank. Said he was handling Mom's affairs." "Okay," she said slowly. I turned the phone toward her. Security footage from 9:15 this morning. She watched, her expression shifting from confusion to disbelief to horror. Her hand flew to her mouth when she recognized her brother. "Oh my God, that's really Ashton. He withdrew $320,000, our entire savings, with a forged power of attorney using Mom's signature." Ophelia rewatched the footage. "This has to be a mistake. Maybe Mom signed something and forgot." "Your mother never forgot financial decisions. Not once in 42 years. I leaned forward. "The signature is perfect, which means Ashton practiced it." She processed this quietly. When she looked up, shock had transformed into something harder. "How long has he been planning this?" "I don't know, but I need help finding out." "What do you want to do?" "Search his house. Find out why he needed money so desperately he'd steal from his grieving father." Ophelia nodded slowly. "Anastasia works until 6. Kids have after-school programs until 5:30. She stopped herself. "I can't believe we're planning to break into my brother's house. I can't believe my son stole our life savings the day after his mother died." We sat in silence, both grappling with this reality where people we loved were capable of unthinkable betrayal. As we prepared to leave, Ophelia hesitated. "Dad, there's something I have to tell you. Last week, Ashton called, asking to borrow $50,000. I said no because I thought he was joking. My blood ran cold. 50,000. He said it was for business, but he sounded desperate. If he was willing to ask his sister for 50,000, then steal 320,000 from you." She didn't finish. She didn't need to. We both understood whatever had driven Ashton to forge Mom's signature and empty our accounts, $320,000, was just the beginning. Breaking into my son's house felt like crossing a moral line I'd never imagined crossing. But as Ophelia worked on the lock to Ashton's home office, I realized that line had already been crossed the moment my son decided to steal from his grieving father. We'd waited until Thursday afternoon when Ashton would be at work and Anastasia at her downtown job. The suburban neighborhood was quiet, making our illegal entry feel slightly less criminal. "Got it," Ophelia whispered as the lock clicked open. Ashton's office was meticulously organized. Mahogany desk filing cabinets framed family photos from happier times. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Start with the filing cabinet," I said. "Look for anything financial." Ophelia pulled open the top drawer and froze. "Dad, you need to see this." The folder labeled Debts Urgent contained statements that made my blood run cold. Casino markers from 3 establishments totaling $800,000. Credit card cash advances going back 2 years. Private loan documents with gangster-level interest rates. "He owes $2.8 million, I whispered. "Look at the dates," Ophelia said. "This goes back 3 years. At the bottom were handwritten threats on plain paper. "Mr. Kane, your payment is 60 days overdue. Our patience has limits. The most recent dated 5 days ago. Time's up. You have 1 week." That's why he needed our money so desperately, Ophelia said. I moved to the desk. The middle drawer was locked, but the key was taped underneath. Inside was a folder that made my stomach drop. Dad's insurance policy. Life insurance documents showed a $2.5 million policy on my life with Ashton as beneficiary. My forged signature was clear as day, but the research underneath horrified me. Printed articles about natural causes of death in elderly men, medical information about heart attacks, and most chilling, a handwritten note in Ashton's writing, potassium chloride, untraceable mimics heart attack. Ophelia, come look at this. She read over my shoulder and gasped. Dad, he was planning to kill you. The insurance would cover his debts with plenty left over. Footsteps in the hallway made us freeze. We'd been so absorbed we hadn't heard the front door. Oh, God, a voice said from the doorway. What are you doing here? Anastasia stood in the entrance, face pale with terror. She was supposed to be at work for 3 more hours. Anastasia, I said carefully, we can explain. No, she said, tears streaming. I know what you found. I've been waiting for someone to find it. She sank into a chair. I've been living in hell knowing what he was planning. You knew, Ophelia asked. He told me everything when the threats started. Said if I told anyone he'd kill me and the kids too. She looked at me with haunted eyes. Mr. Kane, there's something else. About Mrs. Kane. About the accident. My heart stopped. What about Sandra? She didn't die in that crash, Anastasia whispered. Ashton and some doctor. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and went even paler. You have to leave now, she said urgently. Ashton just called. He's coming home early. If he finds you here with all this evidence. She didn't need to finish. We'd discovered my son was not only a thief, but a would-be murderer, and he was on his way home. We barely made it out of Ashton's house before his car pulled into the driveway. My hands were shaking as I drove away, Anastasia's words echoing in my mind. She didn't die. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. The caller ID showed unknown, but the voice that answered made my world stop spinning. Caldwell, it's me. I nearly swerved off the road, that voice, Sandra's voice, soft and impossible. Sandra, I whispered, pulling over. You're dead. Dr. Ashford told me. I saw him myself. Caldwell, I need to tell you the truth. About everything. Her voice was shaking. I've been having an affair with Nathaniel. Dr. Ashford, for 2 years. I fell in love with him. We were planning to run away together. The words hit like a sledgehammer to the chest. 42 years of marriage and my wife was in love with another man. The pain was so sharp I couldn't breathe. An affair, I repeated, voice hollow. You've been cheating on me. Ophelia went white, hearing her mother's voice through the speaker. Yes, Sandra whispered. And I'm so sorry, Caldwell. I never meant to hurt you, but I couldn't live the lie anymore. That's why we faked my death, so we could disappear without destroying you publicly. So this is about your guilt, I said, fury rising. You fake your death to spare yourself the messy divorce. No, you don't understand. Ashton found out about the affair 3 years ago, and he's been blackmailing me ever since. Even through my heartbreak, those words cut through. Blackmailing you. He said he'd tell you everything, destroy our marriage in the most humiliating way unless I paid him. At first it was just a few thousand, but then his gambling debts got worse. I sat in stunned silence. My wife had betrayed me, and my son had been extorting her while I lived obliviously. How much, Sandra? Nearly $400,000 over 3 years. I had to take out credit cards, cash, and investments, even forge your signature. I was desperate to keep him quiet. The power of attorney. You really did sign it. He forced me to. But Caldwell, that's not why I'm calling. I'm calling because I found out something terrible. Ashton isn't just stealing from you, he's planning to kill you. My blood turned to ice. What? The $320,000 he stole yesterday isn't enough to cover his debts. He has a life insurance policy with your forged signature. $2.5 million. He showed me research on how to make murder look like a heart attack. The betrayal was complete now. My wife had cheated and lied. My son planned to murder me. I have evidence, Sandra continued. Recordings of him threatening me, copies of forged documents. I'm at Nathaniel's cabin in Pine Ridge Forest. Cabin 15. I was going to disappear, but I couldn't let our son become a murderer. Whatever I've done to you, you don't deserve to die for it. Sandra, the line went dead. I tried calling back, straight to voicemail. My hands shook as I set down the phone. Dad, Ophelia said, softly, tears streaming. I'm so sorry. About Mom, about everything. I looked at my daughter, the only person left I could trust. Sandra had destroyed our marriage, but she was trying to save my life. Ashton had stolen from me and planned to kill me. The family I'd built over 4 decades was a house of cards, and it had all come crashing down. "We're going to that cabin," I said, starting the car. "But first we're calling the police. I'm done being lied to by the people I love." I should have called 911 immediately. That's what a rational man would do. But rationality had abandoned me the moment I heard my supposedly dead wife's terrified voice. Instead, I made a decision that would either save my family or get us all killed. Back at the house, I dialed 911 and was connected to Detective Xavier Reeves. "Mr. Kane, I understand you're reporting multiple felonies involving your son, fraud, forgery, extortion, and conspiracy to commit murder," I said. "I have evidence. My wife, who we thought was dead, is hiding at a cabin with more evidence. My son is planning to kill me for insurance money." "Sir, where is this cabin?" "Pine Ridge Forest Cabin 15. But, Detective, my wife sounded terrified. I think my son knows where she is." "Do not go to that location alone. We'll dispatch units immediately." "How long to get there?" 45 minutes from Salem." "We're leaving now. Promise me you'll wait for us." I looked at Ophelia, who was shaking her head. "I'll do my best, Detective." I moved quickly through the house, gathering supplies. Flashlight phone battery evidence from Ashton's house. My hands shook, but my mind was clear. "Dad, I'm coming with you," Ophelia said. "Absolutely not. You can't do this alone." "Then I need you alive to tell police what we found." I looked at my daughter, the only family member I could trust. "If something goes wrong, you make sure Ashton pays for what he's done." She was crying. "Please don't go. Your mother is in danger. Whatever she's done, I can't let our son kill her." I kissed her forehead. "Stay by your phone." The drive to Pine Ridge Forest took me through winding mountain roads from family camping trips when the kids were young. Back then, Ashton had been excited about everything. When had that boy become a man capable of murder? My phone rang as I navigated the dark roads. "Detective Reeves?" "Mr. Kane, where are you?" 15 minutes from the cabin. "We're 20 minutes behind you. Do not approach until we arrive." "Detective, If your son is as dangerous as you say, you could be walking into an ambush. Wait for backup." As I rounded the final curve, I saw something that made my blood run cold. An orange glow flickered through the trees. Not electric lights, but the angry red-orange of fire. "Detective," I said, pressing the accelerator, "the cabin's on fire." I could hear him shouting orders as I ended the call. Through my windshield, the scene became horrifyingly clear. The cabin was engulfed in flames, and silhouetted against the inferno was a figure pouring gasoline around the building. Even from this distance, even through smoke and chaos, I recognized that silhouette. It was Ashton. My son was destroying the evidence, and possibly Sandra, along with it. I floored the accelerator, racing toward a confrontation that would either save what remained of my family or destroy us all. Behind me, police sirens wailed in the distance, but I knew they wouldn't arrive in time. Whatever happened next, I was on my own. The cabin was already engulfed in flames when I arrived, and through the orange glow, I could see Ashton pouring gasoline in a desperate circle around the building. When my headlights hit him, he froze like a deer caught in headlights. For a moment, father and son just stared at each other across 38 years of love and lies. I slammed on the brakes and leaped from the car. The heat from the fire was intense, the smoke thick and choking. Through the flames, I could hear voices screaming from inside the cabin. Sandra and Dr. Nathaniel trapped. "Ashton," I shouted over the roar of the fire. "Stop this right now!" He turned to face me fully, and I barely recognized the man standing there. His eyes were wild, desperate, the face of someone who'd crossed a line he could never uncross. The gas can trembled in his hands. "Dad, you don't understand," he said, his voice cracking. "I didn't have a choice. They were going to kill me if I didn't pay them back. I didn't want to," he screamed, and I heard the little boy he'd once been buried somewhere in that anguish. "But I owe $2.8 million, Dad. $2.8 million. The people I borrowed from aren't patient. They gave me 1 week, and that was 5 days ago." The flames grew higher behind him, and the screaming from inside the cabin became more desperate. I had to get Sandra and Nathaniel out, but Ashton stood between me and the only door not completely consumed by fire. "The casino debts," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "How long have you been gambling?" 3 years, he sobbed. "It started small, just a way to blow off steam after work. But then I started losing, and I kept thinking the next bet would fix everything. The next hand, the next spin of the wheel. So you blackmailed your mother. She was having an affair. She deserved to pay for what she was doing to you, to our family. And when that wasn't enough, you decided to murder me for the insurance money. His face crumpled. I researched it for months. Ways to make it look natural. I even bought the potassium chloride. But every time I got close to doing it, I couldn't. You're my dad. I love you. The sound of sirens cut through the night air, growing louder. Police cars with flashing lights appeared through the trees, followed by fire trucks. It's over, son, I said gently. Put down the gas can. Instead, Ashton raised it higher. No, it's not over. If I can't have the insurance money, at least I can destroy the evidence. No one will ever know what really happened. He started to pour more gasoline toward the cabin door, but I couldn't let him trap Sandra and Nathaniel inside. I lunged forward, tackling him to the ground. The gas can flew from his hands, spilling its contents harmlessly into the dirt. Dad, please, he cried as police officers surrounded us. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I never wanted it to come to this. Detective Reeves appeared beside me as his officers handcuffed Ashton. Mr. Kane, are you hurt? There are people trapped inside, I gasped, pointing to the cabin. The firefighters were already moving their hoses trained on the flames. Within minutes, they'd created a path to the door and pulled Sandra and Dr. Nathaniel to safety. Both were smoke-stained and shaken but alive. As they loaded Ashton into the police car, he looked back at me one last time. Dad, I love you. Please remember that I love you. I watched the taillights disappear into the forest, carrying my son toward a future I couldn't save him from. Sandra stood beside me, her hand tentatively touching my arm. Caldwell, she said softly, can you ever forgive me? I looked at the smoldering ruins of the cabin, at the woman who'd been my wife for 42 years, at the ashes of the life I'd thought I knew. How do you forgive the unforgivable? How do you rebuild trust from the ground up? I honestly didn't know. But standing there in the smoke and darkness, I realized that maybe forgiveness wasn't about them. Maybe it was about me. 6 months later, I sat in a courtroom watching my son receive his sentence 12 years for extortion fraud and conspiracy to commit murder. When the judge asked if I wanted to make a victim impact statement, I stood up, looked at Ashton, and spoke the words I'd been practicing for months. Your Honor. I began my voice steadier than I'd expected. My son committed terrible crimes. He stole from me, lied to me, and planned to kill me. But he's still my son, and I still love him. Ashton's head was bowed, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. In his orange jumpsuit, he looked younger somehow, like the boy I'd once taught to ride a bike and throw a baseball. I forgive him, I continued, not because what he did is forgivable, but because carrying anger and hatred was poisoning me. Justice needs to be served, but love doesn't have to die. The judge nodded solemnly. Mr. Kane, your grace in this situation is remarkable. Mr. Ashton Kane, I hope you understand the gift your father has given you today. As they led Ashton away, he looked back at me one last time. Thank you, Dad, he mouthed. I love you. Outside the courthouse, Sandra was waiting with Dr. Nathaniel. The divorce had been finalized a month earlier, amicable all things considered. She looked different, somehow lighter, as if a weight she'd carried for years had finally been lifted. Caldwell, she said, approaching cautiously, how do you feel? Free, I said and meant it. Sandra, I hope you and Nathaniel will be happy together. You deserve a second chance. Her eyes filled with tears. After everything I put you through, you can say that we both made mistakes. We both hurt each other. But we also loved each other for 42 years. That has to count for something. Ophelia appeared beside me, linking her arm through mine. Dad, I'm proud of you. Your father is a better man than I am, Sandra said to her. Take care of him. As Sandra and Nathaniel walked away, I felt a chapter of my life closing. Not with bitterness or regret, but with acceptance. The months that followed brought unexpected peace. I sold the big house, too many memories, and bought a smaller place closer to Ophelia. I started volunteering at a financial literacy program, helping people avoid the debt traps that had destroyed my son. I even began visiting Ashton once a month at the state prison. Our conversations were awkward at first, stilted with shame and pain, but gradually we began to rebuild something. Not the relationship we'd had, but something new, something honest. Dad, he said during one visit, I'm getting help here. Therapy Gamblers Anonymous. I know I can never undo what I did, but I want to be better when I get out. That's all any of us can do, I told him. Try to be better than we were yesterday. I also made sure Anastasia and the grandchildren were taken care of. The kids didn't need to suffer for their father's crimes. They deserved a chance at a normal life free from the shadow of what Ashton had done. As I write this story, sitting in my new kitchen with morning light streaming through windows, I think about the man I was a year ago. He was naive, trusting, perhaps willfully blind to the cracks in his perfect life. That man is gone, and I don't mourn him. In his place is someone harder, but also more compassionate. Someone who understands that forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the strongest thing a person can do. It doesn't erase the past or excuse the inexcusable. It simply refuses to let the past poison the future. People often ask me how I found the strength to forgive my son after everything he put our family through. The truth is, forgiveness wasn't about Ashton. It was about freeing myself from the prison of anger and hate. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't revenge, it's choosing love over bitterness, hope over despair. Looking back at my true story, I realize I spent 67 years being the man everyone expected me to be. The trusting husband, the proud father, the one who always believed the best in people. Don't be like me. Don't trust blindly without asking questions. Don't ignore the red flags because you want to preserve peace. This grandpa's stories taught me that sometimes the people closest to you can become strangers overnight. My true story isn't unique. Families everywhere harbor secrets that can destroy everything you've built. But here's what I learned when your world collapses. God gives you the strength to rebuild it better than before. The hardest lesson wasn't about Ashton's betrayal or Sandra's affair. It was learning that love without boundaries becomes enabling, and trust without wisdom becomes foolishness. Don't make my mistakes. Ask the difficult questions. Verify what people tell you. Protect yourself, even from those you love most. But here's the miracle in my grandpa's stories. God can take the worst betrayal and turn it into your greatest strength. When I thought I had lost everything, I discovered who I really was underneath all those years of naive trust. The Lord showed me that forgiveness isn't about them. It's about freeing yourself from the prison of bitterness. My true story proves that even at 67, you can start over. Even when your family destroys you, God can give you peace. Even when everything you believe turns out to be a lie, you can build a new life on the foundation of hard-earned wisdom. So, what's your story? Have you ever had to choose between bitterness and forgiveness? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else who's walking this difficult path. And if these grandpa stories touched your heart, please subscribe and share this video. Sometimes the most broken stories become the most beautiful testimonies of God's grace. My daughter-in-law ordered for Thanksgiving dinner. Start cooking at 4 a.m. for 25 guests. Just me, a 67-year-old widower who should have been enjoying retirement, not serving as unpaid kitchen staff. I nodded like always, accepting another crushing demand. But that night, while they slept, expecting their perfect feast, I booked a flight to Hawaii instead. I was abandoning more than just a dinner. I was escaping a life that had slowly strangled my dignity. 25 hungry relatives arrived to find an empty kitchen and my note, "I'm not your servant. Figure it out yourselves." They called me 47 times that day. I was about to teach them an expensive lesson about taking the wrong person for granted. Quick question before we dive deeper. Drop a comment telling us which country you're from. Stories like this prove that family respect issues are universal. The sound of Judy's heels clicking across our hardwood floor always reminded me of a gavel coming down in a courtroom. Sharp, decisive, final. I was elbow deep in dishwater from the dinner I'd just served them pot roast, with all the sides the way my late wife Helen used to make, before arthritis claimed her gentle hands 3 years ago. "We need to discuss Thanksgiving arrangements, Dad." Judy swept into the kitchen like she owned it, which according to the mortgage papers she and Trevor had co-signed, she practically did. Her designer purse hit the counter with authority as I scrubbed the last of the gravy from Trevor's favorite serving dish. My hands were raw from the scalding water, but I'd learned not to wear rubber gloves around Judy. She'd once commented they made me look unprofessional, as if cooking for my own family was a job performance. "Of course," I replied, forcing warmth into my voice that I didn't quite feel. "What can I do to help?" Judy reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper, handling it with the ceremony of someone presenting evidence in court. She placed it on the counter next to me with deliberate precision. "The guest list for Thursday," she announced. "I've invited a few more people this year. Trevor's colleagues from the firm are coming. My book club wants to experience your famous cooking, and of course the extended family." I dried my hands on the dish towel one Helen had embroidered with little turkeys 20 years ago and picked up the paper. As I unfolded it, names kept appearing. I counted once, then twice, certain I'd made a mistake. 25 people, I said the words barely a whisper. 25 exactly. Judy confirmed with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I know it seems ambitious, but you've gotten so good at hosting these family events. Everyone always raves about your cooking. I stared at the list, my vision blurring slightly as I tried to process what she was asking. Last year's 15 guests had meant I'd started cooking 2 days in advance, barely slept, and spent the entire dinner running between kitchen and dining room, while everyone else relaxed with wine and football. When should I start cooking? I asked, though part of me already dreaded the answer. Judy checked her expensive watch. Well, dinner should be served at 2 p.m. sharp. Trevor's colleagues prefer to eat early. I'd say you should start around 4 a.m. to be safe. Maybe 3:30 if you want everything to be perfect. 4 in the morning, I repeated slowly. 4 a.m., she said more firmly, pulling out another sheet of paper covered in her precise handwriting. Here's the complete menu I've planned. I've upgraded a few things this year. Trevor's colleagues are used to a certain standard, you understand. I looked at the menu and felt the room tilt slightly. Turkey with 3 different stuffings, glazed ham, 7 side dishes, 4 desserts including homemade pie crusts, because store-bought, it just won't do. Fresh cranberry sauce, homemade dinner rolls. Judy, this is quite a lot for one person to handle. She waved her hand dismissively. Nonsense, Dad. You're perfectly capable. Besides, Trevor will be there to help carve the turkey and open wine bottles. Carve the turkey and open wine bottles. That was her idea of help for a meal requiring 16 hours of active cooking time. What time should people start arriving? I asked weakly. 2 p.m. sharp, and Dad. She fixed me with that smile again. Make sure everything is perfect this time. Trevor's career depends on making good impressions. After she left, I stood alone in my kitchen holding that list of 25 names. My eyes scanned every line twice before I noticed something that made my chest tighten. My own name wasn't on it. I was cooking for 25 people, and I wasn't even considered a guest at the dinner I was preparing. I stared at that list, wondering when I'd stopped being family and started being staff. Trevor wandered into the kitchen just as I was folding Judy's impossible list, his eyes glued to his phone screen like always. Maybe he'd see reason where his wife couldn't. Maybe my own son would understand what she was asking of me. Son, I began carefully. 25 people is quite a challenge for one person to handle alone. He barely glanced up from whatever was captivating him on that device. You got this, Dad. You always pull it off somehow. I waited for more. Some acknowledgement of the magnitude. Some offer to help beyond carving and wine opening. Instead, he scrolled through more notifications. Trevor, I'm serious. This is more than I've ever... Dad, you're 67 years old. He finally looked at me, but his expression held no sympathy. What else do you have to do? The words hit me like a physical blow. What else did I have to do, as if my entire existence had been reduced to being their personal chef? As if retirement meant I was just sitting around waiting for someone to give me purpose. I have things. I have my woodworking, my books. Those are hobbies. He was already looking back at his phone. This is family. Tuesday morning found me at Miller's Market at 6 a.m., when the store was nearly empty except for shift workers grabbing coffee. My cart overflowed with ingredients for a feast that seemed more impossible with each item I added. 3 turkeys because one wouldn't feed 25. Pounds of potatoes. Industrial quantities of vegetables I'd need to prep, chop, and transform into something resembling hospitality. At the checkout, Mrs. Henderson, who'd been working that register for 20 years, looked at my overflowing cart with concern. Goodness, Lucan. Having quite the gathering. 25 for Thanksgiving, I replied, trying to sound casual about it. Her weathered face creased with worry. 25 by yourself, honey. That ain't help that's watching someone drown while standing on the dock. The total made my hands shake as I swiped our credit card. $437. My retirement money being spent on a party I wouldn't even be invited to enjoy. When I got home, Trevor was lacing up his golf shoes in the mudroom. Heading out already? I asked, surveying the mountain of groceries I'd need to unpack and organize. Promised the guys I'd make our usual Tuesday round. Pre-holiday tradition, you know how it is. He grabbed his clubs from the closet. You've got everything under control here anyway. You're like a machine when it comes to this stuff. A machine. That's what I'd become to them. Machines don't get tired. Machines don't have feelings that can be hurt by casual dismissal. Machines just perform their function and wait to be needed again. He was halfway out the door when my phone rang. Judy's name flashed on the screen. Dad, I forgot to mention Tommy Morrison has a severe nut allergy. Life-threatening situation if there's any exposure. You'll need to make sure none of the dishes contain nuts or cross-contamination. I looked at the 3 dishes I'd already prepped the night before. Pecan stuffing, almond green bean casserole, walnut cranberry sauce. Hours of work now useless. Which dishes exactly should I remake? I asked, but she'd already hung up. I stood in my kitchen surrounded by $400 worth of groceries, bleeding hands from constant washing and prep work, and a mountain of dishes that had just become more impossible. That night I lay in bed calculating turkey cooking times oven space prep schedules that defied the laws of physics. The math simply didn't work. Sleep abandoned me at 2:47 a.m., my body jolting awake from a nightmare where I ran through endless kitchens, while faceless people shouted orders. The house lay silent, but my mind raced with turkey timers and oven schedules that belonged in restaurants, not homes. I padded downstairs where yesterday's evidence surrounded me. Grocery bags unpacked, prep containers covering counters, 3 ruined dishes sitting in the refrigerator, mocking hours of wasted effort. 8 hours for the turkey, but my single oven would be occupied by casseroles that couldn't wait. Nut-free alternatives required ingredients I didn't have and time I couldn't spare. I'd need to remake 3 complete dishes, while orchestrating a feast that would challenge professional kitchen staff. Helen's voice drifted through my exhaustion, a memory from early marriage, when her mother tried turning holidays into productions. Lucan, you're worth more than your usefulness. But in that dark kitchen, surrounded by expectations I'd never asked to carry, a dangerous thought crept in. What if I just didn't? The idea was so foreign it almost made me laugh. What would happen if 25 people showed up to empty tables? What if they figured out their own dinner for once? For the first time in years, I felt curious instead of dutiful. My laptop sat where I'd left it after researching nut-free recipes. Without thinking, I opened it. The screen glowed, and somehow my fingers found a travel website. Last-minute Hawaii getaway, limited availability. Hawaii. I'd always wanted to see those islands, but Trevor preferred destinations with business networking. Hawaii's just beaches and tourist traps, Dad. What would you do there all day? Flight details appeared like fate intervening. Departure Thursday morning, 4:22 a.m., almost exactly when I was supposed to start cooking. The price made me wince much more than Trevor would approve. But it was my retirement money, too, earned through 40 years of dawn-to-dark work. I stared at the booking screen cursor hovering over select flight. What kind of man abandons 25 people on Thanksgiving? But Helen whispered again, what kind of people expect one person to handle 25 guests alone? I thought about who I used to be before becoming the person who always said, yes, always made it work, always apologized for not being perfect enough. Before I learned making myself smaller for everyone else's comfort. Tuesday morning flashed back Mrs. Henderson's worried face at the grocery store. That ain't help that's watching someone drown. Trevor's dismissive words echoed, what else do you have to do? As if my existence was just empty time waiting for their convenience. I'd spent 50 years being everyone's solution. Maybe it was time they became their own. The confirmation screen waited. 1 click between servitude and freedom. The kitchen clock ticked toward 3 a.m. In 1 hour, 22 minutes, I was supposed to start the most impossible day of my life. Or I could click 1 button and start the first day of the rest of it. My finger trembled over the mouse, hovering between the life I'd been living and the possibility of choosing myself for once. Click. The confirmation email arrived instantly, like the universe had been waiting for my decision. Flight 1847 to Honolulu. Passenger Lucan Vale. Party of 1. There was something powerful about seeing my name on that booking confirmation all by itself. Not Trevor's father. Not Judy's cooking staff. Just me. Lucan Vale traveling solo for the first time in decades. By 3:30 a.m., I was moving through the house like a ghost, each step carrying me further from the life I'd been trapped in. I pulled my old suitcase from the bedroom closet, the one Helen and I used for our honeymoon, to Niagara Falls 42 years ago. Summer clothes, I hadn't worn them in years. The Hawaiian shirts Helen had bought me for my 60th birthday still had tags on them. Too casual for the places we go. Trevor had always said, meaning the places he chose for us. Golf resorts, business conferences, networking events where I smiled and nodded while he built his career on my retirement savings. I packed those shirts now, along with shorts that hadn't seen sunlight since Helen's funeral. Each item felt like armor for the man I was about to become again. The kitchen called me back one final time. Judy's guest list still lay on the counter like evidence of a crime. Next to it, I placed a single sheet of notebook paper and wrote the words that would change everything. I'm not your servant. Figure it out yourselves. Good luck, Dad. No apologies. No explanations. No promises to make it up to them later. For the first time in years, I wasn't sorry for existing, for having needs, for refusing to disappear into their convenience. The drive to Milwaukee's airport took 38 minutes through empty streets, shift workers heading home, night owls heading to bed, people living their own lives instead of serving everyone else's. General Mitchell International looked different at 4 a.m. Purposeful travelers, not reluctant ones. People going somewhere they wanted to be, not where they were expected to be. Traveling alone this morning, Mr. Vale, the gate agent asked, scanning my boarding pass. By choice, I replied and meant it. She smiled, the kind of smile reserved for people who understand freedom. Hawaii for Thanksgiving, smart man. Getting away from all the family chaos. Something like that. The boarding announcement echoed through the terminal. Flight 1847 with service to Honolulu, now boarding all passengers. I walked down that jetway carrying nothing but a small suitcase and 42 years of suppressed independence. Behind me, Milwaukee slept under its November snow. Ahead, Hawaii waited with 78 degrees sunshine and the promise that a 67-year-old man could still choose his own adventure. The flight attendant welcomed me aboard with genuine warmth. Window or aisle, sir? Window. I want to see everything. As I settled into seat 12A, I caught my reflection in the small airplane window. The man looking back wasn't the exhausted servant who'd been washing dishes 12 hours ago. This was someone I barely recognized. Someone who'd finally remembered he was worth more than his usefulness. The engines wound up to full power, and the plane pushed back from the gate. As we lifted into the dark Wisconsin sky, I pressed my face to that cold window and watched my old life disappear beneath the clouds. For the first time in years, I felt anticipation instead of obligation. The plane banked left through Wisconsin's gray clouds, and I watched Milwaukee shrink below. 9 hours stretched ahead, the longest I'd been away from family duties in a decade. No turkey to baste. No timeline to maintain. No one expecting me to solve their problems. The flight attendant offered coffee with genuine warmth. First time to Hawaii, sir. First time anywhere in 20 years. Her smile brightened. Perfect escape, then. Escape. The word felt foreign and wonderful. The passenger beside me, a retired teacher, asked about my plans with real interest. Not what I could do for her, but who I was as a person. We talked for 2 hours about books, travel, dreams I'd postponed. I couldn't remember the last time someone asked about my dreams. Honolulu's airport welcomed me with warm air smelling of flowers and ocean salt. After Wisconsin's bitter cold, stepping outside felt like entering another world. The taxi driver called me sir and asked if this was my first island visit, like I was worth respecting. Vacation or business? Pure vacation, I said. The words felt revolutionary. My hotel room overlooked Waikiki Beach, where people walked hand in hand along white sand I'd only seen in magazines. I unpacked those Hawaiian shirts Helen had bought me, their bright patterns suddenly perfect, instead of embarrassing. In the bathroom mirror, I barely recognized the man looking back. Relaxed shoulders, eyes that weren't calculating cooking times. The shower washed away more than travel fatigue. Years of kitchen grease burnt fingertips, and swallowed resentment spiraled down the drain. I emerged feeling lighter than I had since Helen's funeral. The hotel's beachside restaurant served Mai Tais in glasses bigger than my coffee cups at home. Coconut shrimp arrived on plates decorated with orchids food as art, not fuel. Other diners smiled and nodded, treating me like an interesting person. What brings you to paradise? The waiter asked. I finally learned to choose myself. He raised his eyebrows appreciatively. Best reason I've heard all week. At the next table, a couple celebrated their 40th anniversary. Retirement treating you well? The husband asked, noticing my peaceful expression. It just started, I said, meaning it in ways he couldn't imagine. The sunset painted the sky in impossible shades of orange and pink. Waves lapped gently while steel drums played in the distance. My phone sat silent in my pocket, still locked in airplane mode. Complete disconnection from the world that expected me to sacrifice myself for their comfort. For the first time in years, I felt internal peace I thought was gone forever. No one needed me to be anywhere or do anything. No one was counting on my labor. I was just Luke and Vale watching paradise unfold while sipping liquid sunshine. As darkness settled over the Pacific, I made my way back to the hotel room that belonged entirely to me. Tomorrow morning, I'd turn my phone back on and face whatever chaos was unfolding back home. But tonight belonged to me alone. Meanwhile, back in Milwaukee, while I was discovering paradise, 9 time zones away, my son was about to discover the true cost of taking someone for granted. Trevor's alarm buzzed at 7:23 a.m., but something felt wrong immediately. By this time on Thanksgiving morning, the house should have been filled with the rich aroma of roasting turkey and the gentle sounds of Dad orchestrating his annual culinary symphony. Instead, silence pressed against his eardrums like a warning. He stumbled downstairs in his boxers, expecting to find the kitchen alive with controlled chaos. Dad surrounded by bubbling pots, timer bells, and the organized frenzy that produced miracles every holiday. The kitchen stood empty, not just quiet, but abandoned. The turkey sat in the refrigerator, still frozen solid. No prep bowls lined the counters, no dishes soaked in the sink. The oven remained cold and dark. On the kitchen counter next to Judy's carefully typed guest list lay a folded piece of notebook paper with his name written in Dad's familiar handwriting. Trevor unfolded it with growing dread. "I'm not your servant. Figure it out yourselves. Good luck, Dad." He read it 3 times before the words penetrated his sleep-fogged brain. Dad was gone. Not sick, not delayed, gone. Deliberately, intentionally gone. Dad!" Trevor shouted into the empty house as if volume could summon back the man who'd never missed a family obligation in 67 years. His phone call went straight to voicemail. Then another. Then another. At 9 a.m., Judy arrived with her arms full of last-minute decorations, her face bright with anticipation. "How's everything looking? Are we on schedule?" Trevor held up the note with shaking hands. Judy's face cycled through confusion, disbelief, and finally rage. "This is humiliating. Absolutely humiliating. The Morrisons expect excellence, Trevor. Your colleagues are coming here for a sophisticated dining experience, not some amateur hour disaster." But amateur hour was exactly what they got. By 10 a.m., both Trevor and Judy were elbow-deep in a kitchen they'd never actually worked in, trying to decode mysteries Dad had made look effortless for decades. How long did turkey take? What temperature? How did you make stuffing that didn't taste like cardboard? The smoke alarm shrieked when Judy's attempt at dinner rolls turned into charcoal bricks. Trevor's stuffing resembled wet concrete. The turkey, hastily shoved into an oven they'd cranked to maximum heat, remained stubbornly raw in the middle while burning on the outside. At 2 p.m. sharp, the first guests arrived to the smell of smoke and failure. Mrs. Morrison stepped through the front door with her nose wrinkled in polite confusion. "Something smells interesting," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "Where's your father?" asked Uncle Raymond, looking around for the man who usually greeted everyone with flour-dusted hands and genuine warmth. "Where's all that amazing food we've been bragging about to our friends?" Trevor's lies came out in stammering fragments. "Family emergency. Dad had to leave town suddenly. We're handling everything ourselves this year." By 2:30, the Morrison family had made polite excuses and left for a restaurant. Uncle Raymond followed with his disappointed grandchildren. One by one, 25 invited guests discovered that their free Thanksgiving feast had come with a hidden cost, taking the chef for granted. The house emptied until only Trevor and Judy remained standing in a kitchen that looked like a war zone. Burnt food, smoke-stained walls, the acrid smell of failure hanging in the air. My son had called me 17 times with no response. By 3 p.m., he was dialing Hawaii every 10 minutes, desperation growing with each unanswered ring. It was time for me to answer. At 3 p.m. Hawaii time, I finally turned off airplane mode. My phone exploded to life like a dam-bursting notification after notification flooding the screen, until I thought it might crash from the sheer volume of panic. 23 missed calls from Trevor, over 40 text messages. The progression told a story more satisfying than any novel I'd ever read, confusion melting into panic, panic escalating into desperation. "Dad, where are you? This isn't funny anymore. Dad, please call back. We need help. Dad, answer your phone." Judy had contributed her own symphony of outrage. "Whatever point you're trying to make, come home and fix this. This is beyond selfish. You're embarrassing the entire family. The Morrisons think we're incompetent. I read every message while sipping my afternoon Mai Tai at the beachside bar, steel drums playing softly in the background. Other vacationers chatted and laughed around me, treating me like an interesting person worth knowing, instead of a kitchen appliance with feelings. The phone's camera captured the perfect selfie Hawaiian sunset painting, the sky gold behind me, genuine smile creasing my face, tropical drink raised in a toast to my own liberation. I crafted my response with surgical precision. Enjoying my retirement at 67? Your adults act like it. I attached the photo and hit send. The phone rang within seconds. Trevor's name flashed on the screen, and I could practically feel his panic radiating through the device. Dad, thank God we need you. The guests all left. It's a complete disaster. His voice cracked with desperation, the same tone he'd used as a child, when he'd broken something valuable and needed me to fix it. Son, I raised you to be independent. Time to prove it. But Dad, we need you. The word hung between us across 9 time zones. Need. Not want, not miss, not love. Need. Like I was a tool instead of a human being. Need me or need my free labor, Ope. The silence stretched long enough for him to understand the difference. Click. Before I could order another drink, Judy called. Her voice hit my ear like fingernails on chalkboard, all social embarrassment and wounded pride. You've ruined everything. How could you be so selfish? The Morrisons are telling everyone at the country club that we can't be trusted. I watched a sea turtle surface near the shore, ancient and unhurried, living life on its own terms. Judy, I'm not dead yet. I can still make my own decisions. But what will people think? I'm your father, not your caterer. Click. The couple at the next table had been listening with barely concealed delight. The wife raised her piña colada in salute. Good for you standing up to them like that? Her husband nodded approvingly. Took guts to walk away from all that manipulation. I ordered another Mai Tai and turned my phone completely off. The sun was setting over the Pacific in shades of orange and pink that no photograph could capture. Waves lapped gently against the shore while Hawaiian music drifted from the hotel's luau. For the first time in 3 years, no one was counting on me to solve their problems. No one expected me to sacrifice my peace for their convenience. I was just a man watching paradise unfold finally, understanding that my happiness mattered too. Friday morning brought a different kind of phone call altogether. Instead of panic and demands, my phone rang with something I hadn't heard in years, genuine support. Lucan, you magnificent man. Elara Clark's voice bubbled with pride and delight. I heard through the grapevine what you did yesterday. It's about damn time. Elara had been Helen's best friend, and mine by extension. She'd watched me shrink into servitude over the past 3 years, biting her tongue when I made excuses for Trevor and Judy's behavior. How did you find out? I asked, settling into my balcony chair with morning coffee that tasted like freedom. Honey, it's all over Facebook. Mrs. Henderson from the grocery store posted about it. Local grandfather chooses Hawaii over holiday slavery, she wrote. You're going viral. More calls followed throughout the morning. Friends I hadn't heard from in months. Neighbors who'd watched my transformation from respected father to unpaid caterer. Elderly acquaintances who'd lived similar stories of being taken for granted by their own families. Wish I had your backbone, said George from down the street. My daughter expects me to babysit every weekend while she goes out with friends. You've inspired me, added Margaret from church. I'm telling my son I won't be doing his laundry anymore. He's 34 years old, for heaven's sake. The most surprising call came around noon. Trevor's voice sounded different, smaller, humbler, stripped of the casual dismissiveness I'd grown accustomed to. Dad, I've been thinking all night. Actually thinking, not just reacting. I waited, letting him find his words. I realize what we put you through. What I put you through. His voice cracked slightly. I never saw you as a person with your own needs and feelings. Just as Dad, the provider. Dad, the problem solver. Dad, the guy who makes everything work so I don't have to think about it. The honesty in his voice caught me off guard. This wasn't the Trevor who'd asked what else I had to do with my time. I raised you to respect people, not use them, I said quietly. I know, and I failed at that completely. A long pause. How do I fix this? How do we fix this? For the first time in our conversation, he'd used we instead of you. You start by seeing me as your father, not your servant, I replied. You start by understanding that my time and energy have value just like yours do. What would that look like? If you want family dinners, everyone contributes. Everyone cooks something, everyone cleans up. If Judy can't respect that arrangement, she's not welcome at my table. And if we want your help with something, we ask nicely and accept no for an answer. Revolutionary concept, I said with a slight smile he couldn't see. Dad, I'm done being anyone's unpaid caterer. I'm done pretending my needs don't matter to keep peace in the family. The silence stretched between us, but it felt different from yesterday's angry pauses. This felt like understanding taking root. I get it now, Trevor said finally. Will you come home eventually? When I'm ready, on my terms, with clear boundaries that everyone respects. Fair enough. Another pause. Dad, I'm sorry it took losing you to find you. After I hung up, I sat on my balcony watching surfers ride perfect waves. Some relationships could only be saved by nearly destroying them first. Some people only learned to value what they had when they lost it completely. Change was coming to Milwaukee, whether everyone was ready or not. 1 year later, I woke up naturally at 8:30 a.m. on Thanksgiving morning. Sunlight streamed through the windows of my Milwaukee bedroom, but everything else had transformed. No 4 a.m. alarm, no impossible timeline, no mountain of dishes waiting to crush my spirit. The transformation had arrived just as I'd promised it would. Downstairs, the sounds of collaboration filled my kitchen for the first time in years. Trevor stood at the stove making gravy from scratch, a skill he'd learned during our months of rebuilding trust. Alara Clark arranged flowers she'd brought from her garden. My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, set the table with 8 place settings instead of 25. 8 people. A manageable, intimate gathering where everyone contributed something meaningful. Morning, Dad, Trevor said, looking up from his whisk with genuine pride. Gravy's almost ready. Think I finally got the lumps figured out. Smells perfect, son. The word son carried weight it hadn't held in years. Not the dismissive tone of a man addressing his servant, but the warmth of a father acknowledging his child's growth. Judy was notably absent. After months of refusing to accept the new family dynamics, she'd chosen to spend Thanksgiving with friends who still appreciated her commanding style. Trevor had made his choice: clear respect his father, or find somewhere else to celebrate. I should have stood up to her years ago, he told me during one of our weekly phone calls. I was so afraid of conflict that I let her treat you like hired help. The dining room buzzed with genuine conversation. Mrs. Patterson shared stories about her late husband's Navy service. Alara discussed her volunteer work at the Literacy Center. My opinions were sought, valued, and respected instead of ignored or dismissed. When we gathered around the table, I raised my glass for the toast I'd been planning all year. Respect isn't earned by age, it's demanded by dignity. The table fell quiet, understanding the weight behind those words. Trevor cleared his throat. Dad, I want to say something publicly. He stood, his voice steady but emotional. I'm sorry it took losing you to find you. I'm sorry I treated your love like labor and your sacrifice like obligation. Around the table, nods of understanding. Mrs. Patterson wiped away tears. Alara squeezed my hand. This past year taught me that family isn't about who serves whom, Trevor continued. It's about who shows up for each other with respect and gratitude. After dinner, as we all cleaned up together, everyone carrying their share, I stepped onto the back porch for a moment of reflection. My phone buzzed with messages from elderly friends across the country, people who'd found courage to set their own boundaries after hearing my story. Told my daughter I won't babysit every weekend, wrote George. Finally said no to hosting 40 people for Christmas, added Margaret. The ripple effects had spread far beyond Milwaukee. Social media had amplified my story into something larger. A movement of senior citizens refusing to disappear into their family's convenience. As the evening wound down, I found myself addressing an invisible audience, speaking the words I wished someone had told me years earlier. To every 67-year-old who thinks they're too old to say no, you're not. Your time matters. Your energy matters. Your dignity matters. Act like it. I paused, looking out at the November sky where stars were just beginning to appear. I spent 3 years being everyone's solution. Now I'm my own priority. And you know what? The world didn't end. It got better. The house behind me hummed with the sounds of a healthy family. Laughter, conversation, mutual respect. Adult children learning to honor their parents. A community transformed by one man's refusal to accept the unacceptable. Sometimes the most revolutionary thing a 67-year-old can do is simply refuse to disappear. Looking back at my true story, I have to admit something that still makes me wince. I blame myself for one critical mistake I taught them how to treat me. Every time I said yes when I should have said no. Every time I smiled through exhaustion, instead of speaking up, I was writing the script for my own exploitation. God forgive me, I enabled my own suffering for 3 years. But here's what I've learned, and what I want every listener to understand. Grandpa's stories like mine aren't just entertainment. They're warnings and wisdom wrapped together. Your worth isn't measured by your usefulness to others. God didn't design us to disappear into servitude just because we've reached retirement age. The true story is this: respect is a choice, not an automatic gift that comes with family membership. When we accept less than we deserve, we teach others that we're worth less than we are. God gave us voices for a reason to speak up when something isn't right, even when those voices shake with age and uncertainty. To every grandparent listening, your grandpa's stories and grandma's stories matter, because your lives matter. Don't let anyone convince you that growing older means growing smaller. Don't let anyone turn your love into labor without appreciation. The true story of family isn't about who serves whom, it's about mutual respect, shared responsibility, and honoring the people who gave everything to raise us. If this story touched your heart, if you see yourself or someone you love in Lucan's journey, don't just listen and move on. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below about your own experiences with family boundaries. Your words might be exactly what another listener needs to find their courage. And if these stories of real people finding their strength inspire you, subscribe to this channel. Together we can remind the world that every person at every age deserves dignity and respect. Your story matters. Your voice matters. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise.